As the presence of ICE has intensified over the past several months, inside Palantir, employees are starting to question their company's involvement. And apparently, when it comes to what Palantir is actually doing with ICE, these employees know almost as little as the public does.
Right now, just from the reporting that I've done so far, there's been a little bit more internal pressure from workers at the company who are concerned about these capabilities and want more information. And there's been the transparency within the company, right? For people who work for Palantir hasn't been great. Like from workers that I've spoken to, they've really only found out information about what the company is doing with ICE by public reporting.
Really?
Yeah. And recently in the call that I was referencing earlier, Karp, at the end, he kind of says, if you want more intimate details on what we're doing, you'll need to sign an NDA, and then we're happy to share them with you. So that's kind of the level that this information is being withheld inside the company. And there's been more and more pressure amongst workers for a little bit more information. All of this kind of blew up after the tragic shooting and killing of Alex Preddy in January, where as soon as we started seeing white Americans getting shot in the streets, the company internally kind of blew up and we're like, are we involved with this? Like, how are we involved? Like, can we do anything to stop this?
Alex Preddy's death seemed to be a turning point for a lot of employees at Palantir. Immediately afterwards, their internal Slack blew up with messages from around the organization.
It seems like there had been some kind of discussions happening in these channels prior, but that had really kind of lit up on the day Alex Preddy was killed. So, what we're seeing immediately in these Slack channels and people chatting is there's like one person specifically saying that the involvement with ICE has been swept under the rug under this current administration and they're need a better understanding of the involvement. And then someone says that they've seen stories of folks rounded up who were seeking asylum with no order to leave the country, no criminal record, and consistently checked in with authorities, no reason to be rounded up. And this is like how opaque the company has even been to its own workers, that a worker can see something like this happening. And then they're asking the question here in this chat and saying, surely we aren't helping to do that. So that's kind of how opaque and how kind of like big of a boogeyman Palantir has become in this space, right? Because even internally at this point, workers are associating anything bad that happens from ICE with possibly something that their own employer, their colleagues, maybe in some other department are working on. People ask more detailed questions too about how Foundry, Palantir's kind of premier software, is used, and asking, we're here, we have our team of folks who are working on this with ICE, right? And we kind of have a contract and we have stipulations on how the product is supposed to be used. But is there anything that we can do to police bad behavior? What if they decided to take data from IRS or data from SSA and put it into Foundry? The workers are basically saying we work really hard to empower clients to make as many changes as possible to the software to fit what it is that they want to do. Well, what if fixing it is illegal, and empowers these kinds of illegal apprehensions, killings? Is there anything we can do? And one of the members of kind of senior executive leadership responds and is like, yeah, we kind of just have to rely on the courts in this case. There really isn't a lot of stuff that we can do.
So you mean like, well, we gave them this tool. If they decide to use it for some illegal purpose, that's kind of on them. We sold them the tool. That's it.
Yeah, there's been some discussion on that and like kind of being like, well, this is something that the courts would have to figure out and it would have to play out in that way. And then on that kind of Friday call that Alex Karp had pre-recorded and sent to staffers, he kind of backed away from that question. And now this wasn't a live thing, so I'm just kind of taking questions that were sent in this Slack and seeing if he would answer them in this call. And surprise, he didn't really. But one thing that he did say was that people and clients and companies who are trying to break the law don't buy Palantir's products because they're too good, essentially. And it would be a lot easier to trace malfeasance because of how good Foundry is.
Good as in good versus evil, or good as in like well-made software?
Well-made software. So the software is so good that you couldn't necessarily do anything illegal because there would be all of these audit logs tracing what it is that you've done. So that's his argument.
I mean, you could do it. They just find you. But then
Yeah.
if the person who's supposed to punish you when they found out that you did something you're not supposed to do doesn't want to punish you,
Yeah.
then you could do the thing that you're not able to do, quote unquote.
Right. Which is what we've seen the Trump administration do for the last year, especially on immigration enforcement, which is
Right.
just show up and enforce and, don't wait on the courts, which I think is a concern a lot of folks inside are seeing too, because, from the materials that I've seen, a lot of folks inside Palantir don't trust the government right now. They don't trust the story that's coming from the Trump administration. And how do you supply a tool to an untrustworthy institution, right? Especially with so much power. This is still like an ongoing discussion that's being had there, but we haven't really seen a meaningful response from leadership just yet.